Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 234 and we have a good one for you today. Today's Fish Friday is a little bit different, although it seems to be more common. As you can see, I am once again in a hotel room. I had a conference that I needed to get to, which I've recorded at this conference before, but I really wanted to talk with you. And it's probably something that we should have already covered. And I kind of wish I was at my computer so I could show you some stuff. But I thought it would be a very interesting video to talk about what is a fish. We've talked about fish's morphological characteristics and stuff like that. But I don't know if we've ever talked about what makes a fish a fish. And that sounds simple. You talk with anyone out there, what's a fish? They're going to have an idea. They're going to know that sharks are fish, that rays are fish. They're going to know like what a fish is. But why is it a fish? And that's actually a little more complicated than you might think. And the reason why it's so complicated is actually because of sharks. Now, remember when we were talking about taxonomy, Chondrichthyes, which is the phylum, I believe, very tired, of sharks. So cartilaginous fishes. But then you have Osteichthyes, which is the bony fish. And they're actually very, very different, as you can imagine. And basically the only characteristic they have is jaws. That's not the only characteristic, but the only defining characteristics in the phylum is really, really difficult to do. It's very convoluted, and it's something that I encourage all of you to talk about. By the way, yes, it is going to be a shorter video. I am so exhausted. In the past 3 days, I have been working, well, let's just say I haven't slept much. So this will be a shorter video, but cartilaginous fishes, they have the cartilaginous exoskeleton, as many know. They have the jaws, which are jaws and teeth are about the only things that gets preserved from sharks. That's why if you look at fossils of sharks, more often than not, it's teeth and sometimes jaws. Every once in a while, you'll see their cartilaginous skeleton if they're preserved in a certain way. And that's really nice. But then you have the Osteichthyes, which follow the same general body shape. So what I probably should do in the future is actually discuss what makes, the actual taxonomic scientific differences, what makes a cartilaginous fish a fish. It's not just the cartilaginous bone, there's actually other things. Actually, we can kind of go into this and make it a little more longer video. So cartilaginous fish, they do have the jaw, they do have gills, and they have the heterocercal tail, but they do have a tail, and I believe their scales are actually one of the defining characteristics of that order. Like how they say, I think they're called teleos scales. Whereas Osteichthyes, which is the family of bony fishes, and another way to think about it is ray fin fishes. So if you think about a lot of the fish that we've done, besides sharks, what do they have in common? Well, a lot of them actually have, should not say that. Actually, I'm completely wrong. Osteichthyes is bony fish, meaning they have developed an internal skeleton. You have these suborders or classes, I think maybe, of Gnathostoma, Actinopterygii, and Holocephali, I believe. It wouldn't be Gnathostome. I wonder what that is. Sorry, I could probably look, but essentially you have the jawless fishes. No, it's bizarre. We're talking about jawless fish, but that's Gnathostoma. But actually, no, they don't fall in Actinopterygii. But I'm talking about Osteichthyes. I'm so sorry. But they have developed an internal skeleton. They do have swim bladders. They have and we've talked about them. Now, some of them have evolved away from swim bladders. That's why swim bladder is not necessarily a defining characteristic, but even the ones that do, they do have similar characteristics. And the scales are part of that. I forget what the actual classification of what Osteichthyes scales are, but they have, oh God, what is it? Leptoid scales. Sorry, leptoid scales. Which that's the whole nother thing we can get into, and I'm not even sure I could define it right now. But what beyond that makes a fish? Because we've talked about so many fish, and all of them have so many different body shapes, characteristics. This one has a swim bladder. This one does not have a swim bladder. This one uses its swim bladders for youngs. This one has ctenoid scales. This one has ganoid scales. This one has the other scale. And these have heterocircle tails. These do not. These don't have tail fins at all. This has a cylindrical body shape. This one doesn't. I mean, it's one of the things that it's a thinker, basically, is kind of where I'm getting at, is what makes a fish a fish? And there's so many things that we take for granted in the world of, just regular everyday life. If someone comes up to you and says, hey, what's a fish? And you're going to have a picture in your head. And you're going to be able to explain, the fish you have in your head. Oh, it's got this, it's got that. But scientifically, what makes a fish is, to me, not as clear cut as people think. I mean, primarily aquatic environments. And you have to say primarily because they literally have adaptations to not be in water. Think about mud skippers, you think about lungfish, you think about walking catfish. They literally have adaptations that allow them to at least exist in a non-aquatic environment. You got the lobe fin fishes that, the coelacanth and things like that. Those are very important fish, but a coelacanth looks very different than a darter. And that's why the characteristics when you get in higher phylums are so broad, because they're the member of the Chordata family. Chordata basically means it has a notochord. It's not even a vertebral column. It's literally just like the notochord, which isn't important, and it was an evolutionary adaptation that literally advanced on. And then you have everything under that. And now that I think about it, Gnathostomatidae, of course, would be the jawless fishes. They're their own things. The hagfishes and things like that. They are a fish, but they're their own thing. And so, please go do a deep dive in there. But, it's, as I always encourage you all to think. Think for yourselves. Go question things. Be inquisitive. Go learn something, even if it's something completely useless. The ability to think is kind of lost in today's world. People regurgitate facts, and I'm guilty of this. Everyone is. But one of the most important things that we as humans can do is just think about that. Go think, go learn, go find something that's like, ooh, go down the rabbit hole. It's always so bizarre what you can find. Just, this and that, it's so bizarre. So don't ever take a question like that for granted. What is a fish? I can picture a fish in my head. You can picture a fish in your head. If I show you a fish, you're gonna be like, that's a fish. why is it a fish? And why is it classified the way it is? Kind of goes with the taxonomy thing, but I really think it's an important skill, and maybe this is almost like a critical thinking memo out there. Think about questions. Don't just say, oh, it's a fish. Like, have these thoughts in your head, even throughout your everyday life. That's words have meaning, basically. Why is this a fish? Well, that's kind of broad. It's a very broad statement. Anyway, but thank you guys so much again. Sorry this video may not be up to everyone's par. This was definitely a spur of the moment sort of thing, and attending the scientific conference all about fishery science. On the way back to the hotel, I was like, what am I going to do a video on? I was like, you know what? I think it's a valid question. What is a fish? And I'm sorry, I don't really have all the answers. I'm not a taxonomist. I primarily focus on family levels down. Beyond the family levels, I definitely should, but it's like, it's like, oh, you hand me a bass. Oh, that's Osteichthyes. It's a member of the Thrasciformes. It's a Thracidae. It's part of the genus Micropterus. It is Micropterus salamoides. I know those things, but why are Syncharchids? Well, I can do that. Why is Micropterus? Why is that genus lumped together? Well, I can get that too. But why is it Osteichthyes? Well, it's a bony rayfin fish. Sorry, it's a bony fish. Actinopterygii, that's the rayfin fish. That's where things get convoluted, and I am not necessarily an expert on, and it's definitely one of those things that other people would be much more well versed than me. But thank you guys so much again. Thank you so much for the love and support. If you'd like to support the channel, please click the link down below. It is by no means expected, but very much appreciated. Regardless, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and peace.